3 simple ways to reduce logistics costs. Would that be useful? That's the topic for this week, coming right up. Okay, so this week I'd like to give you 3 easy tips on how to reduce logistics costs. They're going to sound a little bit obvious, but I feel I've got to mention them because so many companies get this wrong. Now, I'm actually doing a conference talk tomorrow evening, and I'm going to use these comments to sort of open my particular session. But then I'm going to go on to talk about other ways to improve the supply chain. So I'll tell you what I'll do. Next week, I'll summarize that conference presentation as well, because there'll be a few tips in there. But for this week, 3 easy ways to reduce logistics costs. We've got to do less of 3 things. What do you reckon they are? We've got to hold less inventory. Now, I know that is far easier said than done these days, but even with supply disruptions, there are ways that we can reduce the amount of inventory we're holding and hence the inventory cost. Have a look at how you're deploying your inventory. How many inventory locations do you have? Do you have a full range in each of those locations? You know, maybe you've got 10 warehouses around the country and they're all full range. Could you actually service, you know, the faster items out of all of them and the slower items out of a couple, those sorts of things? The other thing that most companies have an opportunity for is slob stock, or SlobX, as our inventory guru here at Logistics Bureau calls it, Melanie. So Melanie calls it SlobX. What does that stand for? Slow, obsolete, and excess stock. So most companies I've worked with over the last 30 years do have slow-moving, obsolete, or excess stock. So have a look at that and see if you can get that out of the way. You know, either by you know, centralizing it or doing discounts and getting rid of it. You know, there's all sorts of ways to reduce that inventory. So that's the first less inventory. The next one is less handling. Think about it for a moment. Think about your own logistics operation or even your end-to-end supply chain and think about the number of times that you handle product. Let's just think about a warehouse for a minute. You've got product arriving in the warehouse and being dispatched out to customers. It's going to arrive from a supplier or from your factory. It's going to get unloaded. 1 touch. It's going to get assembled on the unloading dock and checked, probably 2. It's going to get put away in storage. 3 times it's been touched so far. It's going to be picked for an order 4 times. It's going to be assembled into the order perhaps 5 times. Maybe the order's going to get packed and ready for dispatch 6 times. It's going to get loaded into a truck 7 times. You know, I've seen warehouses where the product gets touched 10 times on its way through the warehouse. Why is that a bad thing? Every time you touch it, you're spending money. You're spending money on labour, on equipment to touch it each time. The fewer touches, the less it costs to process the orders through the warehouse. So have a think about that in your own warehouses. How many times do you touch your products in the warehouse? Think it through and comment down below. I'd love to hear. If you're doing 5 or less, you're doing pretty well. So we've had less inventory, less handling, less touches. What's the last one, do you think? Less transport. Easier said than done, but think of transport overall as moving product a given distance. And I always often in this case like to think of it as ton kilometres or ton miles. How many tons are we moving a distance, you know, times the distance? How many ton kilometres, ton miles are we doing in a year, and can we reduce that? And one of the tips is try to move product as much as possible in bulk. It is cheaper to move your product in bulk, whether it be in a ship or a truck. Let's say, for example, we're moving it across country to a local warehouse and it's in bulk. The cost per unit is going to be a lot less than our last mile delivery, for example, delivery out to a business or to a consumer at home. That part of the transport is really costly, very high cost per unit. So have a look at how many times you're moving product external to the warehouse, what type of transport it's in, and above all else, try to avoid transfers. Really interesting, when we have a look at distribution networks for our clients, we map all of the transactions, and it's amazing to see how much of their product goes on a holiday around the country. You know, it'll come into a warehouse here, get transferred to a warehouse there, and then go out to a customer. You want to try and minimize all of those transfers. You know, maybe they're overstocked in this warehouse and they transfer back down. You know, some better inventory planning could have reduced that extra transport leg. So there we go, just a very quick summary of 3 simple ways to reduce logistics costs: less inventory, less handling, less transport. And next week, I'll give you a quick intro into what I'm talking about tomorrow night at this conference, and there'll be some more tips in there, broader supply chain tips that are going to help you. But for this week, thanks for watching. See you next week. And before you go, think about your warehouse. How many times do you touch the product? Comment down below. I'd love to find out. Bye for now.